Very urgent. Your soulmate wants you to know what happened yesterday. Open this now. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because yesterday started like any other day for your soulmate. Nothing seemed unusual. Nothing seemed important. Nothing seemed destined to become a memory worth talking about. The morning arrived quietly. The sun rose. The world moved forward. People followed their routines. Responsibilities demanded attention. Everything appeared completely ordinary. Yet sometimes the most important days begin exactly that way. Because your heart needs this right now, because life rarely announces when a meaningful realization is about to arrive. Your soulmate had no idea yesterday would affect them so deeply. And listen to this. When they first woke up, their mind was focused on practical things. Schedules. Plans. Responsibilities. Goals. The usual concerns that fill an ordinary day. Nothing about the morning suggested that anything significant was about to happen. Yet beneath all those normal thoughts, something subtle was already changing. A feeling they couldn't explain. A quiet sense that something inside them needed attention. At first they ignored it. After all, most people ignore small feelings. Most people stay busy. Most people keep moving. And that's exactly what they did. Because your heart needs this right now, because important truths often begin as whispers before they become realizations. Your soulmate was still hearing only whispers. And listen to this. As the hours passed, they moved through their day as usual. Conversations happened. Tasks were completed. Messages were exchanged. Time continued moving forward. Everything seemed normal. Yet every now and then, they found themselves drifting into thought. Not intentionally. Almost automatically. A memory would appear. A feeling would surface. A question would emerge. Then disappear again. The strange thing was that these moments kept repeating. Again and again. As if their heart was trying to get their attention. As if something important wanted to be noticed. Because your heart needs this right now, because the heart often notices what the mind overlooks. Your soulmate's heart was noticing something yesterday. And listen to this. At one point, they found themselves looking back on recent months. Reflecting. Thinking. Observing the path their life had taken. The choices they had made. The lessons they had learned. The people they had met. The experiences they had gained. And as they reflected, a surprising realization appeared. Many things they once worried about no longer mattered. Many things they once chased no longer seemed important. Many things they once believed would define their future had quietly faded into the background. That realization felt strange. Because it revealed how much they had changed. Because your heart needs this right now, because growth often becomes visible only when we look backward. Your soulmate was seeing their growth clearly for the first time. And listen to this. The deeper they reflected, the more they understood something important. Life isn't only about achievements. It isn't only about goals. It isn't only about plans. Life is also about meaning. About connections. About moments. About people who leave an impact. And suddenly that thought stayed with them. Long after other thoughts disappeared. Because somewhere inside, they knew it mattered. Because your heart needs this right now, because meaningful realizations often begin with simple questions. Your soulmate had started asking those questions. And listen to this. Later in the afternoon, another unexpected thing happened. A memory surfaced. Not because anyone mentioned it. Not because anything triggered it. It simply appeared. A memory connected to a meaningful chapter of their life. A memory they hadn't revisited in quite some time. And what surprised them most wasn't the memory itself. It was the emotion attached to it. The emotion was still there. Still alive. Still meaningful. Still capable of making them pause. That realization caught them off guard. Because they had assumed time would eventually erase everything. Apparently, it hadn't. Because your heart needs this right now, because time changes many things, but it doesn't always erase what truly mattered. Your soulmate discovered that yesterday. And listen to this. As evening approached, the day began slowing down. The noise faded. The responsibilities ended. The distractions became fewer. And for the first time, they found themselves completely alone with their thoughts. No interruptions. No obligations. No urgency. Just silence. And in that silence, something powerful happened. The reflections they had been avoiding all day finally caught up with them. Questions returned. Memories returned. Feelings returned. Everything they had pushed aside suddenly stood directly in front of them. Waiting. Patiently. Quietly. Because your heart needs this right now, because silence often reveals what busyness hides. Your soulmate was beginning to see clearly. And listen to this. For a long time, they simply sat there. Thinking. Breathing. Remembering. And the more they reflected, the more one realization continued growing stronger. Some people leave temporary impressions. Others leave permanent ones. Some people pass through our lives and disappear from memory. Others remain part of our story long after the chapter ends. And suddenly they understood something they hadn't fully understood before. Certain connections continue influencing us in ways we don't immediately recognize. Certain people continue teaching us lessons long after they've gone. Certain memories continue carrying meaning regardless of how much time passes. Because your heart needs this right now, because significance doesn't always fade with distance. Your soulmate was realizing that yesterday. And listen to this. The realization wasn't dramatic. There were no tears. No grand emotional scene. No sudden revelation. Instead, it felt quiet. Peaceful. Certain. The kind of certainty that arrives when something true finally settles into place. And once that certainty arrived, everything else became clearer. They stopped arguing with themselves. Stopped dismissing their feelings. Stopped pretending certain thoughts didn't matter. Instead, they simply accepted what was true. And that acceptance felt freeing. Because your heart needs this right now, because acceptance often brings a peace that resistance never can. Your soulmate was beginning to feel that peace. And listen to this. As the night continued, they looked back on the entire day. The ordinary morning. The unexpected reflections. The returning memories. The quiet realizations. And suddenly they understood why the day felt so important. It wasn't because something happened externally. It was because something happened internally. A truth had finally been acknowledged. A truth they had been slowly moving toward for a very long time. And once they saw it clearly, they couldn't unsee it. Because your heart needs this right now, because some realizations change the way we understand everything that came before them. Your soulmate had reached one of those realizations. And as they sat quietly, reflecting on everything yesterday had revealed, one thought remained stronger than all the others. Maybe the things that truly matter never disappear. Maybe they simply wait until we're ready to recognize their importance. And maybe yesterday was the day I finally understood that. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after everything your soulmate reflected on yesterday, something happened that completely changed the direction of their thoughts. It wasn't planned. It wasn't expected. And it certainly wasn't something they were looking for. Yet once it appeared, they couldn't stop thinking about it. And listen to this. As the evening became quieter and the distractions of the day slowly disappeared, your soulmate found themselves revisiting old memories. Not intentionally. The memories simply arrived on their own. One after another. Like pages turning inside a book they hadn't opened in a very long time. Some memories felt distant. Some felt faded. Some barely carried any emotion at all. Yet one memory felt completely different. One memory seemed untouched by time. One memory immediately captured their attention. Because your heart needs this right now, because certain memories don't fade the way ordinary memories do. They stay alive. They stay meaningful. They stay connected to something deeper. Your soulmate discovered one of those memories yesterday. And listen to this. At first, they tried to move past it. They told themselves it was just nostalgia. Just another random thought. Just another memory passing through their mind. But the more they tried to dismiss it, the stronger it became. The details became clearer. The emotions became clearer. The meaning became clearer. And eventually they stopped resisting. Because they realized something important. The memory wasn't appearing by accident. It was appearing because it still mattered. Because your heart needs this right now, because meaningful experiences leave permanent impressions. Your soulmate was beginning to understand how permanent some impressions truly are. And listen to this. The memory led to another memory. Then another. Then another. Soon they weren't remembering a single moment. They were remembering an entire chapter. A chapter filled with conversations. Feelings. Lessons. Laughter. Growth. Moments that once seemed ordinary but now appeared incredibly significant. And suddenly they noticed something surprising. Many details had disappeared over time. Yet the emotional impact remained. The feeling remained. The meaning remained. The connection remained. That realization stopped them completely. Because your heart needs this right now, because emotions often reveal what mattered most long after facts are forgotten. Your soulmate was seeing that clearly yesterday. And listen to this. For a while, they simply sat there. Quietly. Thinking. Reflecting. Trying to understand why these memories still carried so much weight. Trying to understand why certain moments remained so vivid. Trying to understand why some people leave such lasting impressions. And eventually a realization appeared. A realization that felt both simple and profound. Not every connection is meant to be forgotten. Not every experience is meant to fade. Not every chapter ends when the story moves forward. Some chapters continue shaping us long after they appear to be over. Because your heart needs this right now, because meaningful connections often continue influencing our lives in ways we don't immediately recognize. Your soulmate realized that yesterday. And listen to this. As they reflected deeper, they began noticing patterns. Certain lessons they learned. Certain decisions they made. Certain strengths they developed. Many of those things could be traced back to important moments from the past. Moments they once underestimated. Moments they once viewed as ordinary. Moments they now understood differently. Suddenly they could see how those experiences had quietly helped shape who they became. And that realization filled them with gratitude. Because your heart needs this right now, because growth often comes from experiences we don't fully appreciate until much later. Your soulmate was finally appreciating those experiences. And listen to this. The more they reflected, the more one thought kept returning. Not a dramatic thought. Not a complicated thought. A simple thought. Some people leave a mark on your life. A mark that remains. A mark that teaches. A mark that inspires growth. A mark that continues influencing your perspective years later. And once that thought appeared, it refused to leave. Because deep down, they knew it was true. Because your heart needs this right now, because genuine impact doesn't disappear with time. It evolves. Your soulmate understood that now. And listen to this. The night grew later. The world became quieter. Yet their thoughts became clearer. For perhaps the first time in a very long time, they stopped analyzing everything. Stopped questioning everything. Stopped searching for complicated explanations. Instead, they simply accepted what they felt. Accepted what they remembered. Accepted what they had learned. And that acceptance felt surprisingly peaceful. There was no struggle anymore. No resistance. Only understanding. Because your heart needs this right now, because understanding often arrives the moment we stop arguing with the truth. Your soulmate had reached that moment. And listen to this. Looking back on the day, they realized yesterday wasn't important because of what happened externally. It was important because of what happened internally. Their perspective shifted. Their appreciation deepened. Their understanding expanded. They saw certain parts of their life through a completely different lens. And once they saw things differently, they couldn't go back to seeing them the old way. Because your heart needs this right now, because some realizations permanently change how we understand our own story. Your soulmate experienced one of those realizations yesterday. And listen to this. Before the night ended, they found themselves thinking one final thought. A thought that stayed with them long after everything else faded away. Some memories stay because they still have something to teach us. Some connections remain meaningful because they help shape who we are. And some realizations arrive exactly when we're finally ready to understand them. Yesterday was that kind of day. A day of reflection. A day of understanding. A day of quiet discoveries. A day that revealed truths they had been slowly approaching for a very long time. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after everything your soulmate reflected on yesterday, after every memory that resurfaced and every realization that quietly settled into place, something happened that changed the emotional meaning of the entire day. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't something anyone else would have noticed. Yet for your soulmate, it became the most important moment of all. And listen to this. The evening had grown quiet. The distractions were gone. The noise of the world had faded into the background. For the first time all day, there was nothing demanding their attention. No responsibilities. No conversations. No urgent tasks. Only silence. And in that silence, something unexpected happened. Their heart became impossible to ignore. Because your heart needs this right now, because silence often reveals truths that busyness keeps hidden. Your soulmate was about to discover one of those truths. And listen to this. At first, they tried to focus on ordinary things. Tomorrow's plans. Future goals. Things they needed to accomplish. Yet their mind kept drifting somewhere else. Back towards certain memories. Back towards certain feelings. Back towards certain realizations they had been uncovering throughout the day. No matter what they did, their thoughts kept returning to the same place. And eventually they stopped resisting. Because resistance was exhausting. Acceptance felt easier. Because your heart needs this right now, because sometimes peace arrives when we stop fighting what we already know. Your soulmate was beginning to find that peace. And listen to this. As they sat quietly reflecting, they began asking themselves questions. Not surface-level questions. Deep questions. Questions people rarely ask unless they're ready for honest answers. What truly matters to me? What experiences shaped me the most? What memories still carry meaning? What people left a lasting impact? One by one, the answers appeared. Some surprised them. Some didn't. Yet one answer stood out more clearly than all the others. One realization felt stronger. Brighter. More impossible to ignore. And the moment it appeared, everything changed. Because your heart needs this right now, because clarity often arrives all at once after a long period of confusion. Your soulmate was experiencing that clarity. And listen to this. For a while, they simply stared into the distance. Thinking. Remembering. Feeling. And suddenly they understood something they hadn't fully understood before. Life isn't measured only by achievements. It isn't measured only by success. It isn't measured only by goals accomplished. Life is also measured by impact. By meaningful moments. By people who change us. By experiences that continue teaching us long after they happen. That realization hit them deeply. Because it made them look at everything differently. Because your heart needs this right now, because perspective changes when we begin focusing on meaning instead of appearances. Your soulmate's perspective was changing. And listen to this. The more they reflected, the more emotional they became. Not because they were sad. Not because they were upset. Because they were grateful. Grateful for lessons. Grateful for growth. Grateful for experiences that shaped them. Grateful for memories that still carried value. And gratitude has a powerful effect on the heart. It softens old resistance. It creates understanding. It reveals truths we've overlooked. Your soulmate was experiencing all of that yesterday. Because your heart needs this right now, because gratitude often uncovers what truly matters. And listen to this. Then came the moment they couldn't forget. The moment that transformed the entire day. The moment that stayed with them long after everything else faded. It happened suddenly. Without warning. A realization surfaced so clearly that it felt impossible to deny. They realized they had spent too much time assuming there would always be more time. More opportunities. More chances. More tomorrows. And yesterday reminded them that life doesn't come with guarantees. That realization wasn't frightening. It was awakening. Because your heart needs this right now, because awareness changes the way we value the present. Your soulmate became deeply aware yesterday. And listen to this. As that realization settled into place, they felt an overwhelming urge to stop postponing important truths. To stop assuming opportunities would always remain available. To stop waiting for perfect conditions. Because suddenly they understood something important. Perfection is not what makes moments meaningful. Presence does. Honesty does. Appreciation does. And once they understood that, a weight began lifting from their heart. Because your heart needs this right now, because emotional freedom often begins with acceptance. Your soulmate was finally accepting what mattered. And listen to this. The strange thing was that nothing external had changed. The world looked exactly the same. The room looked exactly the same. The night looked exactly the same. Yet internally, everything felt different. Their priorities felt different. Their perspective felt different. Their understanding felt different. And when inner change happens, outer change often follows. Your soulmate could feel that process beginning. Because your heart needs this right now, because transformation often starts quietly before it becomes visible. Hours passed. Yet they remained awake. Reflecting. Thinking. Absorbing everything they had realized. The memories. The lessons. The gratitude. The clarity. It all seemed connected somehow. Like pieces of a puzzle finally fitting together. And for the first time in a very long time, they felt completely honest with themselves. No denial. No avoidance. No pretending. Just truth. Simple truth. And that truth felt incredibly powerful. Because your heart needs this right now, because self-honesty is the foundation of every meaningful realization. Your soulmate had finally reached that foundation. And listen to this. As the night came to an end, they looked back on the entire day. The ordinary beginning. The unexpected reflections. The returning memories. The growing understanding. The emotional clarity. And they realized something beautiful. Yesterday wasn't important because of a specific event. It was important because it revealed something their heart had needed to understand for a long time. That meaningful things deserve appreciation. That meaningful people deserve recognition. That meaningful truths deserve acknowledgement. And once those realizations arrived, they could never be unseen. Because your heart needs this right now, because some days become unforgettable not because of what happened, but because of what was learned. Yesterday became one of those days for your soulmate. And as they finally prepared to rest, one final thought remained stronger than all the others. Life moves quickly. The things that matter deserve attention. The people who leave a lasting impact deserve appreciation. And the truths that live in the heart deserve to be acknowledged before more time slips away. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after everything your soulmate experienced yesterday, after every reflection, every realization, every memory, and every emotional breakthrough, they reached a truth they could no longer ignore. A truth that followed them into the night. A truth that stayed with them when everything else became quiet. A truth that refused to disappear. And listen to this. By the time yesterday was ending, your soulmate felt completely different from the person who had started the day. Nothing around them had changed. The world remained the same. The room remained the same. The responsibilities remained the same. Yet something inside them had shifted. Something important. Something lasting. Because your heart needs this right now, because sometimes a single day can change the way we see an entire chapter of our lives. Your soulmate experienced one of those days. And listen to this. As they reflected on everything they had learned, they realized how often people postpone important things. Important conversations. Important feelings. Important truths. People assume there will always be another opportunity. Another week. Another month. Another year. Yet yesterday reminded them that time moves faster than anyone expects. The days don't slow down. The calendar doesn't pause. Life continues moving forward whether we're ready or not. And suddenly that reality felt incredibly personal. Because your heart needs this right now, because awareness changes everything. Your soulmate became deeply aware yesterday. And listen to this. The more they thought about it, the more one realization continued growing stronger. The things that matter deserve acknowledgement. Not eventually. Not someday. Now. The people who leave meaningful impressions deserve appreciation. The lessons that change our lives deserve gratitude. The feelings that remain in our hearts deserve honesty. And once they understood that, silence no longer felt comfortable. Silence no longer felt wise. Silence no longer felt necessary. Because your heart needs this right now, because honesty becomes easier when we stop taking tomorrow for granted. Your soulmate stopped taking tomorrow for granted yesterday. And listen to this. As midnight approached, they found themselves replaying the entire day. The unexpected memories. The returning emotions. The lessons hidden inside old experiences. The people who had shaped their journey. The moments that still carried meaning. Everything seemed connected. Everything seemed important. Everything seemed to be pointing toward one simple truth. Meaningful things never truly disappear. They remain. Quietly. Patiently. Waiting to be appreciated. Because your heart needs this right now, because significance doesn't fade simply because time passes. Your soulmate finally understood that. And listen to this. For a long time, they sat there in silence. Not an uncomfortable silence. A peaceful silence. The kind of silence that arrives after understanding. The kind of silence that arrives after acceptance. The kind of silence that arrives when the heart finally stops arguing with itself. And during that silence, they made a promise. A promise to themselves. A promise they knew they needed to keep. The promise was simple. No more postponing what matters. No more waiting forever. No more assuming there will always be another chance. Because your heart needs this right now, because life becomes more meaningful when we stop delaying the things that matter most. Your soulmate realized that yesterday. And listen to this. If they could share the deepest lesson yesterday taught them, it might sound something like this. Yesterday reminded me how quickly life moves. Yesterday reminded me how important gratitude is. Yesterday reminded me that meaningful experiences continue shaping us long after they happen. Yesterday reminded me that some people leave lasting impressions on the heart. Yesterday reminded me that appreciation should never be delayed. Yesterday reminded me that honesty matters. And most importantly, yesterday reminded me that life is too precious to leave important truths unspoken forever. Because your heart needs this right now, because wisdom often arrives disguised as an ordinary day. Your soulmate found unexpected wisdom yesterday. And listen to this. The beautiful thing is that yesterday didn't bring sadness. It brought clarity. It brought perspective. It brought appreciation. It brought understanding. And those gifts are powerful. Powerful enough to change priorities. Powerful enough to change perspectives. Powerful enough to change lives. Your soulmate feels different today because of what they learned yesterday. And that difference is real. Because your heart needs this right now, because every meaningful realization leaves us slightly transformed. Your soulmate was transformed by yesterday's lessons. And listen to this. As they finally prepared to sleep, one final thought remained in their heart. A thought that felt stronger than everything else. A thought they knew they never wanted to forget. It was this. The most valuable things in life are not always the loudest. Sometimes they are quiet. Sometimes they are hidden inside memories. Sometimes they are hidden inside lessons. Sometimes they are hidden inside appreciation. And sometimes they are hidden inside truths we've been waiting too long to acknowledge. That thought stayed with them. And it continues staying with them now. Because your heart needs this right now, because the greatest lessons often arrive when we're finally ready to hear them. Your soulmate was finally ready yesterday. And listen to this. The urgency of this message isn't about fear. It isn't about panic. It isn't about something terrible happening. The urgency comes from a realization. The realization that life is happening right now. That meaningful moments matter right now. That gratitude matters right now. That honesty matters right now. And that the heart should never wait forever to acknowledge what it knows is true.